I am Nicola Dallabetta from Italy, and I'm working for Agromillora Iberia as a technical manager. My presentation today will regard the Geneva rootstocks in Europe, the experience that we have, we done, and also the future, the perspective of the Geneva genotypes in Europe. Good afternoon to everybody. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me at this important symposium. Rootstocks is an important topic and is one of my main interests that in my career, and I am very pleased to share my expertise and some knowledge and some experiences we have in Europe about Geneva genotypes. My first slide I want to introduce for people that don't know me. I have been working for 27 years at the Edinburgh Foundation as a researcher. I'm working on many topics, mainly on apples, pears, and cherries. In 2019, I had my sabbatical year and I worked for International Fruit Genetics as a technical manager for cherries. And at the present, I am employed by Agromillora as a technical manager and working on cherries and apple mainly. As you can see, rootstocks was always one of my main research topics in my life. Apples in Europe, this is the surface of apples. Just briefly, you can see that is 500,000 of hectares. Mainly, the main areas are in Poland, Italy, Romania, and France. Here on the right side, you can see the production. More or less is 10 million of tons. The production in Europe during these last 25 years was more or less stable. If you can see in the below picture, only Poland increased the production in the last 10 years. Poland is producing more or less 3 million of tons, Italy 2 million of tons, a little bit less France, which are the three main countries for apple in Europe. What about the rootstocks? This is a picture that you can see in the main apple countries where what are the main representative genotypes. You can see that more or less 90% are represented by M9. When I'm talking about M9, I'm talking about mainly by the clone T337, but there are also other clones like Pajan 2 or Pajan 1, or even the NIC 29 or the MLAT, for instance. But M9 actually is the most present genotypes. You can see here in blue, in the picture in blue, that you can see that, for instance, in France and Italy, is almost, or in Germany, for instance, or in Spain, 90% is represented by M9, while in other areas like Poland, #1 in apple production, is only the M9 is only the 50%, because there are other genotypes like stronger genotypes like M106, or even the Budakowski, or even the more stronger genotypes like P14 and MP60. The main training system is spindle, still 95%, and this is the typical tree that you can see in the upper orchard in Italy. About the tree density, during the last 2-3 decades, there was a strong tendency to reduce tree size. We started already in 1970 with a seedling, but then very fastly we moved to stronger genotypes like M111 or MM106, M26, but nowadays we are using M9 prevalently. And about the tree density, more or less, we are between the 3,000 and 6,000 trees per hectare. Of course, the tree density had a great advantage. You can see here in the picture that increasing the tree density from 3,000 trees to 3,900 trees, we were able to move to anticipate the break-even point, and this is very important. And also because we increase the productivity. Increasing tree density means also to increase to have a positive effect on the cumulative yield. And this, of course, affects the cost of labor and the cost of the production, sorry. You can see that increasing the tonnage per hectare, we can reduce significantly the cost of production. But also in the recent time, we can say that M9 is showing some limits. One is the apple replant disease. This is a picture that can represent the production in the last 40 years in my country, in my region, which I am from Trentino region. And you can see that there was a strong increase in productivity in the 1980 years. This was due to the M9, because we increased the density, we increased production, and you can see now the production is quite stable, around 500,000 tons. But we are already in the third generation. So due to the many reasons, like we have a very limited surface area and also a limited space because we are surrounded by mountains. But in general, it's a general problem. When you have three generations of M9, M9 is very sensitive to R&D and A&D. And this is a problem because the growers are forced to plant the trees in the same position after 40 years. And this leads to have a apple replant disease problem. Here you can see a picture of a third leaf of red delicious, and is very weak. And you can see the main objective of the plantation is to fill up the available space. And the tree is only 1.7 meters. So the efficiency is okay related to the tree, but related to the surface, we are in jeopardy. So the production is very low. So other problems related to soil fertility or tied to the soil, we have an apple tree dieback. This is a main problem in the north of Italy. So the tree, apparently it was more common for apples, but also apples have been affected. And you can see the patches in the orchard here where the trees are missing. So it's a huge problem. Also, there is some problems also related to fungi like Rosalina necatris, the white root rot. Biotic stresses that M9 cannot cope or cannot afford is this kind of pest and disease. We have apple proliferation in Europe, mainly in Italy. This is a mycoplasma. Then you can see the woolly apple aphids, that is the Eryosoma lanigerum, that is not, in the past was present only in the organic farming, now also is present in the conventional farming. And then the fire blight. This is a bacteria, as you know, and the fire blight was a big problem last year in the north of Italy, especially in the young plantation. So what the growers are doing, because this to cope with this situation. So for the weak trees in the replanting problem, they start to increase to fertilize the soil. And actually they increase too much, because this is not good for the environment. Also, to stimulate the shoot growth, they started to have to apply a very shortcut pruning, and this could be an issue in some areas, or could have not always a positive effect. And also, in some areas, they reconsider to increase the organic manure to application, and this is quite good. In this situation, we have more or less between the 2 and 3% of the organic organic matter in the soil, but still we need, particularly in the young plantation, to add some additional application. And also, people are starting also to change, to swap the soil, and this can have a very limited effect. This is for the replanting problem, but also in some area, like in organic, they try to use different crops in order to increase the fertility of the soil. But the worst thing is that people, against pest and disease, they start to increase also the treatment, chemical treatment, and this is not a very good plan, because, as you know, Europe is very concerned about the chemical reduction. In the few years, we are reducing dramatically, and this is a good point, the use of chemical compound. And another option could be to introduce, against all these biotic and abiotic stresses, to introduce new genotypes. Like this is an example of G11. What is the situation about the rootstocks, Geneva rootstock in Europe? At the moment, the Geneva rootstock is only the EFTR, which is a European fruit tree rootstocks, which is a company formed by four main nurseries, like Chiv in Italy, Dalival and Castang in France, and Janssen in Holland. They are licensee of 10 Geneva genotypes, and this is the situation. So the Geneva are providing by this group, EFTR. And bearing in mind that belong these four main rootstock, these rootstock are representing also the 11% of the apple trees in Europe. Europe produces more or less 85 million of trees per year, and 9.4 are provided by these four big nurseries. So these are the rootstocks that are present nowadays in Europe and provided by EFTR, and this is the situation or status of 2019. And you can see that we have four rootstocks that are in the commercial marketing status, like G16, G11, G41, and G202. There are also other rootstocks that have been planted recently in the stool bed, like G95, G210, and G969. And recently, other genotypes like Geneva 214 and Geneva 814 has been planted in the stool bed. Of course, we are talking about stool bed because we have to understand also that some rootstocks like G41 has problem in the stool bed and has to be propagated through micropropagation. The production of Geneva in Europe is more or less 3 million of trees, and the main genotype, the 82%, is represented by G11, followed by G41, 8%. Then we have G202, 4%, and G16, the 2%. The rest of the genotypes, as you can see, represent a very limited percentage totally. These are some experiences that I did, also some of my old research trials when I was working at the ECMA Foundation. And this, you can see here the golden delicious with the genotypes G11, G16, and G202. And you can see that we had, this is a table where you can see in the blue bar, you can see the vigor, the tree size. In the red bar, you can see the yield efficiency, the cumulative yield efficiency. And you can see that the G11 was very good in terms of vigor, because the vigor were more or less like M9, and also in terms of yield efficiency was higher or similar than Pajan 2. P16 was pretty, we have got good results also in terms of efficiency, similar to the control, like which is M9337, while the 202 is more vigorous for us, for golden delicious. You can see the vigor is too high and the efficiency is significantly lower. If you're looking at the same genotypes in red delicious, spur, which is a weaker varieties, you can see that G16 and G11, they confirm a good efficiency, higher vigor to M9. And this is very important because maybe the M9 on red delicious is too weak for these varieties. So G16 and G11 could be a good alternative to M9 in this situation. And G202 in this case was pretty sufficient results, because you can see it increased the vigor, but also the efficiency was a little bit lower than M9. These are other trials. This is a trial that I presented also at the ESHS symposium in Bologna in 2016. And you can see here the G11 and G16 on different varieties like Gela, Golden, and Fuji in two sites. In the Grand Adige Valley River at 200 meters above sea level, and at 600 meters, so in the mountain area. So it's an average of results. And you can see here that G11 and 16 confirmed to be stronger than M9, and a little bit less efficient, but because the trees were quite weaker for M9. But the most important result for me was provided by Geneva, was that both the Geneva were able to produce a higher number of fruits per tree. And in G16, you can see that not only to higher number of trees, but bigger fruit size. And this is a great result that is already confirmed in the bibliography, that Geneva genotypes are able to produce a larger fruits. There is also a trial. There you can see this is a replanting trial where we compare 5 genotypes, including the 3 Geneva. You can see the 41 and G16 had a similar tree size of a 9 and also a similar yield efficiency. See, this is a great result in order to provide that G41 is a good alternative to M9 in Europe. In that years also, there were actually in the commercial orchard, there were very few commercial orchards that has been developed. This is an example, and this is a known valley where maybe this is 5 years ago. You can see also in Golden Delicious, with G41, excellent results. And you can see in the lower side, in the right side, Gennaro Fazio that came to visit us at that time. Also, there is a group in Europe that is doing research. This group is the EUFRIN Working Group, Apple and Pear Variety and Rootstock Testing. This is formed by many research institutes that are trying all the rootstocks, including the Geneva series. And this is actually a great opportunity to test, or at least the best way to test the rootstocks in different sites. So to have the same plot, the same orchard design in the different area, in the different environment. This will give further additional information about the rootstock's performance. And these trials are generally sponsored by, of course, the EFTR, the Dallabetta, and Agromillora recently, by introducing the G213 and G41. This we will develop a trial in 2023. This is an example, or in my previous research work, when I was at the MAP Foundation, I was able to introduce more or less 50 genotypes in my research. And of course, about the Geneva in the since 2011, we started to introduce the commercial one, the G11, 16, 41, and 202. But after 2014, I was able to introduce also other 8 genotypes from Cornell. These are the G95, the G969, G2034, which is weaker. We tried this on Fuji and Gela. The G3001, the G4218, the G213, and the G56 and 008 recently. So I wanted to show some results. This is a replanting trial in collaboration with the Limburg Institute in 3 different areas in Trentino region. You can see here the control, of course, is the M9 and the M26, but you can see 6 Genevas. But I wanted to say that G11 in this trial was not coming from the same nursery, and the trees were weaker. So we have to consider that G11 is not the real G11 because it's too weak for this trial. But you can see the great results obtained by the strong genotypes like G95 and G969, and also the G41, that in the first 3 years, this is actually the second, the third, and the fourth leaf, they had the highest cumulative yield. Also, as I told you, this is a replanting site, and you can see this is the cumulative shoot growth measured in the first 2 years. And you can see that G41 confirmed to be a replanting tolerant rootstocks compared to M9. Of course, this strong genotype like G95 and 969 were used also due to the bigger tree size and the vigorous one, the vigor. We were able to introduce and to apply this genotype also for a different training system like B-axis. You can see in the left side, with Geneva 295 with red delicious, the 3-axis with 969 red delicious, and also the 935 and 969s with golden, with excellent production. You can see that this picture are related to the third leaf. So we were able to arrive to the whole production in the third leaf. These in yellow are, in the orange, are the number of fruits they were able to produce. So more or less, this is a 3-axis. We were able to produce 50 fruits for each axis. If you consider that the 3 axes were planted at 1.5 meter, and the D-axis, this is an example of a Gala, but also it was applied to 3 varieties, Gala, Golden, and Fuji. We just published with Gennaro Fazio a recent paper in 2021 in Horse Science. You can read this paper, it's very interesting. And this trial shows that in terms of number of fruits, the target the target of the number of fruit for 3 was 100 fruits for the M9 and 150 fruits for the 3 axis. And you can see that M9 was reaching the target only on the 5th leaf, while the G6969s at the 4th leaf, while the nitrified at the 3rd leaf. So it was a great result. And this is the cumulative yield in terms of tons, which you can see all the 3 varieties. And we consider that an apple orchard to be sustainable has to reach at least 150 tons at the 5th leaf. And we were able to produce with the Geneva to overcome this target. So in all varieties, we were able, particularly with G95, but also with G969s, to overcome significantly this target. At the moment, so after the 2018, the situation, the state of the art is that these genotypes, these trees grafted on Genevas are sold by EFTR, but also by sub-licenses. You can see in the top, many of the nursery that are providing the Geneva are in Holland, in the Netherlands, in Belgium, but also in France, in Italy, in Austria, and in Spain, with Certiplan and Agromillora. Totally, the Geneva trees represent more or less the 4% of the total apple tree production in Europe. Nowadays, there is in 2019, particularly in France, in Portugal, in Spain, and in Italy, there are new commercial orchards. This is an example of Gela on G213, where you can see that this is on the 3rd leaf, and the 1st leaf, a nice example in Nome Valley. And here is in the 2nd leaf, is a plantation of 2019, trained as a UFO system or multiple leader system. We were able to produce 10 kilos or 3 with Gradisca this year in 2020 on the 2nd leaf. And this is a great result, bearing in mind the M9 was the same training system of M9 was able to produce 6 kilos for 3. So finally, after this talk, what we can do, what are the perspectives for the Geneva in Europe? I think it's important that the Geneva has to be introduced because we have biotic stresses. So as we explained, particularly fire blight and woolly apple aphids is a problem nowadays, is a reality. So we need the Geneva. We need rootstock that are tolerant to this pest. And also the replanting problem. This is an issue that is not particularly in the mountain area. If you think many areas in Italy, for instance, are cultivated, many of the apple orchards are cultivated in a mountain area where the soil is poorer. So replanted is becoming a big issue. And also the cultivar. Nowadays, we have plenty of cultivar available, and each cultivar needs an appropriate genotype. And is an example in my region where you can see here Natira or Fengapi or Sweet Tango that has recently introduced in commercial orchard. These varieties are very weak, so there is a demand of vigorous genotype. And also the training system. We spoke about the spindle that is number one. Still, the 95% of the trees are represented by spindle, but we have also alternative training systems that are promoting now, like the bee-bound trees or the three-axis trees, or recently the Guyot trees, which is a multiple leader trees. Also the organic. You have to bear in mind that in Europe, organic farming are significantly increasing. In my region, in 2 years, from 500 hectares now, we have 1,000 hectares of organic. So organic requires stronger rooster than M9. And finally, I can talk about the propagation method and the nursery revolution that will invest in the next year. Is provided by, for instance, in Europe by Agromillora, that are helping the nursery to provide the rootstock through the micropropagation technique instead to use the stool bed. This is a great resource. This technique can provide a great advantages, like in terms of sanity, in terms of tree quality, but also in terms of logistics. If you have, in order to reduce the time of to provide the trees. So I can say thank you to everybody. If you have any question, I will be more than available later on. Thank you very much.